Good morning everybody, it's Good Friday here in Essex and we're at the Cressing Temple site, which was formerly the headquarters of the Knights Templar in England and is famous for its two barns, its Barley barn and Wheat barn, which date from 1137. And one of them, which is the Barley barn, is the oldest timber frame barn in the world. In front of us we can see what used to be the farmhouse, and then looking over to the right is the gardens. First of all, what we're going to do, we're going to visit the Granary and then the Colt Hall. It was called a Colt Hall because at one time it was used by the local lord of the manor as a courthouse. So let's go upstairs. It's probably a bit dark, but I think you can appreciate the sheer mystical quality, as it were, of this beautiful undulating timber frame building. And you can see it's undulating, the floor is all over the place. I wouldn't like to come in here when I'm drunk. If I spin around very slowly, you can appreciate the timbers of this beautiful building. And then we're walking through which is now used for farmyard exhibits, back in the day equipment. And you have to watch where you walk here. As I say, the floor is undulating. Certainly got the ambience of the period, isn't it? And if you look up, you can see the heavy oak timbers. These buildings are a rarity today because more commonly these buildings have been converted into homes, and surely this would make a wondrous home for anyone. And this looks out on a courtyard, as you can see here. Anyway, let's wander through. We're going downstairs and we're going to go into the Colt Hall, which is next door. I don't know much about the history of that, but I know that at one period of history it was used, as I say, by the local lord or squire as a magistrate's court. Okay, we go downstairs. And this is the Colt Hall. So yes, this is quite an attractive little building, isn't it? One single room. And a few museum exhibits are included. And of course display boards explaining the archaeology of the site. And obviously some of the stuff that they've found when they've had their digs here. And there's been a succession of digs here over the years. Right, this broken jug here, that brown one, and you can see the head of it. There's a face on it. Can you see the face? That is a Bellarmine jug. It's a Flemish jug named after Cardinal Bellarmine. Dates from the 17th century and was used to hold beer. I think Cardinal Bellarmine rather was a Catholic, and England being a Protestant country obviously took umbrage with him. The politics of which I'm not familiar with, but I suppose I could find out. But anyway, Cardinal Bellarmine's face appeared on quite a few of these drinking vessels. And let's go back a little bit, let's step backwards. As I'm walking away, we go down the side of the building. It's a lovely structure, isn't it? It's really attractive. And down the bottom we have what is known as a cart lodge. And here we are. This was built in the second half of the 18th century. As you can see, it's a variety of tools and implements that would have been used. all done by hand, of course. And if we walk a little bit further down, there's a beautiful cart here. I mean, look at this. I do love horses and carts. Kind of reminds me of the time I went to Aarhus in Denmark, where they had horse and carts. Obviously nothing like this, but landau carriages being drawn by horses. And looking at this, it kind of gives you that feel for horse-drawn transport. And then the hand-drawn cart here. Sadly, could do with another paint job, I think. So if we walk down here, one more time, you can see what's left on site from the time of the Templars is the remains of a moat. And it's interesting to also note that this site was later, after the Templars were thrown from power. There's another building up here. After the Templars were removed from power, the site was handed over to the Knights Hospitallers, and of course I believe in 1300s we had the 1347 thereabouts, this is from memory, we had the Wat Tyler Rebellion, the Peasant Revolt, and they actually sacked Cressing Temple site. They stole armour, they stole jewellery, gold plate, silver plate to a certain value, and desecrated the site. After the Knights Hospitallers, they built a large country house here, which sadly has been completely and utterly removed. But what we do have, and we'll be talking to Oana shortly, is in the actual garden area, which used to be like the cottage garden for the farmer, or for the big house that once stood here, where people would cultivate their own vegetables, because you couldn't exactly go down to the market. Okay, we have one of the stables open here. I'll just pop in here. It's back again in the old Granary building, but below where we were earlier. Let's just step inside. This would have been where the plough horses or shy horses would have been kept. I suppose that's a feeder. I'm sure someone can correct me on that. And there's some of the harnesses that the horses wore during their tenure here. So it would be nice to see the horses back here again, wouldn't it? And then we come out of this building, and we're now going back to the front of where we started. And we're heading for the farmhouse. Now the garden we're going to visit shortly is actually a recreation. I believe it was built in the 1990s, and it's one of the few of that period for which it's recreated, which I do believe is around about the Tudor period, and has an interesting water feature and a collection of different herbs and shrubs which were used by people in the past. This is a lovely little section here. Got a garden shop there where you can buy plants. And then if you come over here, you have more plants for sale. Now the only part of this building which is open to the public is the bakery. I'll just take you in there now. A very tiny space of a large house basically. I have been inside the house. It's got some Nicely oak panelled rooms, an interesting cellar there, but it's not generally open to the public. In the past they've had paranormal investigations here where they've opened up parts of the building to the investigators, but for general visitors today there is no access, unfortunately. And it gives you an array of, obviously these aren't freshly baked cakes or tarts, but facsimiles of what they used to make here. And of course the enamelware containers. I love enamelware, always have done. Check out the stone sink. Imagine using that. Anyway, let's move on. Right in front of us is the wheat barn. As I say, these date from 1137. This isn't the oldest barn. But as I say, today access is verboten. Apparently they're carrying out renovation work. But I have some photographs which I've taken previously here, which you can see now. As you can see, the structure of the barn is very, very interesting indeed. And the amount of timber which was used in its construction, well, it just beggars belief, doesn't it? The cost of which today would be extremely prohibitive. And of course the wall leaning onto it is the herb garden which we're going to. So yes, unfortunately we can't actually get in there today, but at least you can see the photographs. Now we're coming to another record breaker. This is the Barley barn, which is the oldest of the two, and this is the oldest timber frame barn in Europe, I believe in the world actually. That has been dated and proven to be the oldest. I don't know what the nearest competitors are. Obviously the wheat barn you've just seen would be one of them. And these were built for the Templars. They owned a considerable amount of land in this district. So what would have happened, the peasants would be farming the land and they would pay their tithes, which is their share of the crops which had to be given to the Order of the Templars. And of course it was brought back here and stored in these two giant barns. They own a considerable amount of land in the district, and when I say considerable, it was huge. The town of Witham in Essex, for example, was a trading stop developed by the Knights Templar, and that eventually evolved into a town. So it gives you an idea of their power in this district. It's quite an honour for me to live in an area very close to the actual core area of the Knights Templar in England. But sadly, there's so little of it to be seen today, isn't there? Anyway, we're coming back alongside the farmhouse and we're heading towards the garden. Okay, Oana's now going to take you around the walled garden.
There we go. Okay, let's start the journey. So this wall garden is a reproduction of a Tudor garden or late medieval garden, and there's quite a few people here today, which was expected. And there's a lot to take in. So let's start reflecting on times when a garden was a source of food, of healing and cleaning products. You might have heard from the if you watch documentaries, medieval documentaries, well, not medieval, obviously not medieval documentaries, God I wish, medieval inspired documentaries. You might have heard about the potager. Well, the potager was much the staple diet of any anyone that was not a noble. So it was a staple diet of most of the people in the late medieval times. And the potager consisted of cereals and pretty much everything that was available in the garden at that specific time. And the interesting thing was that they would let this potager just sit in the pot on top of the fire for even days. And when they were eating in a specific, let's say they're eating today, they would just add some extras to what they had already in the potager. And meat was extremely rare, so that was quite a treat if they would have meat. It was mostly, like I said, just things that you had in the garden at that specific time. Now, the walls of this garden are original of the 15th century. There was a house here as well, which was taken down about 100 years afterwards. And the way the garden is designed, it's very close to what it would have looked like in the 15th century. All the herbs here are medieval herbs used in medieval times. We have a sacred border which had the sacred herbs, and we have the culinary beds, the medicinal border, so quite a few things. Now this place is beautiful. I'm lucky enough to see it throughout the seasons, and I've seen this garden grow since last year, because I do come here quite often. And it's so amazing to me because last year we they still had the spinach, and that's the beets I think, and that's the swede, and the artichoke, which grows massively in summer. It's so beautiful. And now they planted some newer plants. There we go. I'm gonna try and give you as much as I can without disturbing others, because there's quite a few people here today. So they have a massive amount of mint at this particular time, and lovage as well. There we go. And this is the area that's called a Nosegay. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this was full of sweetly scented plants that would be used in the house or in the chapel. And this is a bay tree. Look how beautiful that is. Isn't that just stunning? Let's go and see the knot garden. And I'm gonna take you guys through the viewing point as well. Trying to let other people film and take photos as well. Now, a knot garden was essentially what it says it is, but it was also a symbol of the skill of the gardener and the financial status of the owner. And look at this beautiful fountain. And that would be the viewing point. So yeah, a knot garden would have been quintessential for the gardens. It's fascinating how they managed to combine the use of it is a large garden, but it's not really on a massive scale, but somehow they just managed to combine use of culinary and entertaining as well, medicinal. And here we have the pleasure gardens, and that is the knot garden, which is actually done from a original drawing. Because when you think of a garden today, well, when we think of a garden today, we just think of flowers or vegetables, and they've managed to just put together everything. It's astonishing to me how much the medieval times has gave us. Or given us. I'm sure someone's gonna correct me on that. They left an amazing legacy when it comes to medicinal plants, and well, they left a legacy of the hospitals. Pretty much the hospitals as we know them today started from the medieval times. There's this series which I absolutely love. I'm not sure if it's well known. It's called Cat File, and it is about a medieval monk, and it's really fascinating. Thank you.
It's alright. You look very professional there.
Trying my best. There's a lot of people, so trying to respect the privacy as well. It's a bit hard. Thank you.
Looks good.
Yeah, thanks. And this is what's called a meadow garden, and we actually have these plants. We have them at home in our garden. They just are in pots. Look at this. I think they're called snake plant, and that's because if you look at the pattern on the flower, it looks as if it's snake scales, I think they're called. Look at this, isn't this just beautiful? There's so much work that goes into this garden. Every time I come here, it's a multitude of people that take care of it. It's really a lot of work, and they're all volunteers. This is the vegetable garden. I remember the leek when they first put it actually in the ground, and I was thinking to myself, God, how is it ever going to survive the winds and the frost? And it did, and it was just such a small little thing. If you are into gardening, I am into gardening. You know how leek is when it's a baby. It almost looks as if it's just chives. It looks like one little chive, and it managed. Let's see, which way should we take? People are very nice and understanding, but it's still preferable, obviously, when it's a bit emptier. But we all want to enjoy the garden, so it's quite popular. What I find fascinating is the fact that the walls are original, and that is just so beautiful. Look at the rosemary, which is in flower. And there we have it. This was the tour of the garden as much as I could. It is really a beautiful, peaceful place. I would say this is the most beautiful garden that I've seen from all my visits everywhere in Europe. It's really nothing like it. And if you're a medieval geek like I am, then this would definitely be your favorite as well. Okay, guys. Do come and visit if you're in the area, because it is spectacular. It is really a little gem. And I hope you enjoyed the tour. And let us know which one was your favorite part of the garden. And thank you for putting up with me. Bye, guys.
Oana,
Oh,
did you enjoy that little tour around
Yes,
the
I did.
gardens? Yes.
well, I tried my best to give the tour and not to talk. I did talk a lot again.
She does rather.
I always say I won't, and I always do. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I didn't let's say give that much information regarding the plants. I just kept you
The generalised walk.
generalized walkthrough, yes, because there's so many plants. You just need a day here to just talk about them.
Well, I mentioned earlier about a well, which I thought was in the old courthouse, but in fact it was actually the Roman tiled floor. So let's go and have a look at the well, where it really is.
Yes.
We've got this little anti-building here. And we step inside. Next to the authentic medieval music. And down below is the well. This is the actual well. I'm not sure how deep it is, but I can imagine it's quite a drop. And again, a few more implements used in the old days. One is just here for the oh, corn dollies, look at this.
It feels like both a privilege and a responsibility to be
How amazing.
privileged to be looking after.
But anyway, what we're going to do now, let's show them where the moat was.
Yes.
There's the farmhouse that I mentioned earlier. And of course most of it we can't access. But we'll take you down to what's left of the moat. In fact, part of the moat actually stretches to the other side of the main road. Okay, this is part of the moat. It looks like an ordinary pond, but it isn't. I'll just wander around. And this is quite a wooded piece of scrub here, which is really nice, very attractive. People come here for picnics. And here is part of the original medieval moat. A little scan around very gently. Trouble with these cameras, it's so easy to to move the camera far too quickly, and you really don't get to appreciate what's there. So that's part of the original moat, and we can walk through here, Oana. And you can see how the moat stretches way into the distance behind there. And we're going to follow this through. I believe the moat was built at the time they built the so-called White House here, or the Great House, which was a large mansion property after the dissolution of the Templars and, of course, the Hospitallers, who gave up ownership of the site. It's a very attractive piece of woodland here. We're very close to the main road, which is a little bit of a distraction, I think. And then we can wander down here. There is a lot of history on this site. Most of it is buried, unfortunately, but the fact that it's still here after so many centuries in itself is quite an achievement, especially the Barley barn, which we're actually standing behind here. So this is the oldest timber frame barn in the world. I think it did have some French and Nordic challengers, but this by carbon dating has been proven to be the oldest. And there we are, that moat, which unfortunately dries out in the summer, so this is probably the only time of the year that you can really appreciate it. And then we just continue down here a little bit further past the fir trees. Mind the rabbit holes. Do you love this place?
Yes, it's my favorite.
What?
I know I say quite often that something is my favorite, but this is definitely my favorite place.
Yeah, she loves coming here, especially the garden.
Yeah, the garden. No two ways about it. From all the gardens I visit, I even said it earlier, that from all the places I visit, that garden is my favorite.
The whole site has just got that ambience, that kind of magic.
It disconnects you from the outside world.
Yeah, which we both love.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know, Oana is one of those rare gems in my life. She's like a treasure, and like most treasures, she should be buried. I'm only joking. Anyway.
Is that what that hole was doing in the garden?
Yeah. Oh, you spotted it, did you? Over the back here is a small field with some ducks and geese, which you can't see from here on this camera. And then we're going to spin round and creep our way back into the Templar part of the site. As you can see, it's all been ring fenced off. They're carrying out repairs, which is rather unfortunate, but you can't have everything, can you?
No.
And here we are again. This is the oldest barn, front side. Just a shame it's all locked up.
When will they open?
Doesn't ever say. It always says that it's closed for maintenance, which is a shame. But as I say, everybody's seen the pictures, so. But it's not the same as being able to walk in with this camera, because it gives you that feeling that we're all together. We're all wandering through at the same time. I should do conducted tour, shouldn't I, really? Now, here around the back is the only relic left from the Great House, or the White House. And I will show you it. It says staff only. I'm just going to sneak in. This is the only piece that's left. One of the chimney pots. And that was from the mansion, this huge mansion which used to stand here. And this was dug up some years ago, and it's been turned into a plant container. And this is the back of the property here. This is the staff area, so I'm being naughty now. But I wanted to share that because it's one of the few relics left here that you can actually enjoy.
Have you showed them the oven?
Oh, I've showed them everything in there. And there's only one, actually, there's just one area I haven't shown them. And we're going to walk up, there now. When we went over to the Granary, I took you around the upstairs and round the sides where you had a look at where the plough horses were kept. But now we need to move a little way further down from the same building, and where you can see part of the original moat in a very tranquil setting. It's very busy here. They have a tea room here which is run by the Tiptree Jam Factory.
And it will be even busier on the 1st and 2nd of May with the fair.
Oh, they got a fair here, yeah. I think we should have music playing along this bit here. This is the empty bit as we wander across. I think the only place I haven't taken you to, apart from where we're going, is the toilets, and I really have got no intention of taking you in there, but there they are. Okay, ahead you can see some sheep pens. Now that's the back of the cattle lodge. Can you see that? The cart lodge rather. But this is so beautiful. So there's the old farmer's sheep pens. And this is part of the original moat. And the other half of this moat stretches on the other side of the road. But this is absolutely beautiful. I'll just follow this through very slowly for you. So that is the cart lodge, the back of, and this is part of the original moat. And just one other place, the exhibition room. As you can see in front of me, the cart lodge is there as well, which are a lot more recent. And now we're coming up to the back of the cafeteria, and we're going into the exhibition room. And here we are. Cressing Temple Barns, 13th century wooden barns, Tudor wall garden, and some of it is shut. Okay, this gives you a timeline of the site itself. And I'll just go down very, very slowly.
This place is all about people, I think.
On the hat.
This wall garden is very special to me personally. It feels like both a privilege and a responsibility to be here.
Of course, they have a section on the Templars themselves.
Been here for over 400 years.
I won't go through every panel because I'll be here all day.
To be looking after it.
But just to give you a general feel, life on the manor. Now this is the big mansion house that I mentioned earlier. As you can see it here, and it was surrounded by the moat. And you can see the moat if you look very carefully. I'll hold it down here.
But a garden of this age, which is over 400 years old,
So you can see the moat,
it's transformed.
and you can see the original building which once stood here, and you can see the garden area, which is now the Tudor garden, which is a walled area over the back. What a wonderful sight, isn't it, eh?
Create a new garden,
Okay, let's go through.
that would demonstrate to people what Tudor gardening was like, what plants were grown at the time, how those plants were used, and the sort of garden that this would have been, which is a pleasure garden, for the large manor house that was built here, and it would have been for the
And there we go, you can see the manor house
to enjoy
again.
for their pleasure as well as for them to use in a utility.
And some of the clothing that people apparently wore during the very varying periods of history, and tree ring dating or dendrochronology. And you can see the rings here, sections of timbers that should have been cut.
Because personal stories bring
Gives you a lot of history. This is the wattle and daub infill that people used in the old days to support their walls. So you would erect the timber frame, and you would infill the timber frame firstly with the wooden staves, and then with the, I think, mostly cow dung plaster, which was then painted after it dried. Okay. What are you doing?
Looking for books.
Looking for books.
Yes.
Oana is a great reader of
Leaflets.
books.
I recognize this. You've been to that church. I think you made
Oh
a
yes,
documentary.
yeah, yeah.
Cressing Church.
Yeah, the one we can't get into. That's the trouble. There are so many buildings, historic buildings, that now are all completely out of bounds because of COVID, which I think is just an excuse to keep these buildings shut, because if COVID is a problem, why are other buildings open? Anyway, that's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed our wander around, both from Oana and myself. And if you ever get the opportunity to come here, you should do so. And on this fine April day, I will bid you all farewell. And thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.